In my experience, the biggest barriers to self-advocacy are patient engagement and expectation, and the lack of understanding within the medical community of the disease process. With every acute vascular complication I've had, there has developed a pattern of misdiagnosis. I was not prepared for my first complication. I had not been very engaged about my diagnosis, and my own expectations were that one day I would suddenly collapse and die like my mother had. So I hadn't prepared myself for the opportunity to survive complications and what those experiences could be like, such as how symptoms might present. I knew that most clinicians would be unlikely to have treated a patient with vEDS. However, I believed that if I told them I had a diagnosis of vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and was at risk of spontaneous vascular and hollow organ rupture, they would understand. So what has been my experience? After symptoms of low back pain, inability to weight bear through my left leg, and abdominal pain escalating to become excruciating, I started vomiting violently, so much that it ruptured vessels in my face. I called 999. My symptoms seemed to be taken very seriously, and I was taken to A&E. I had a scan that showed multiple small aneurysms, but I hadn't been scanned before. However, I believe I was having multiple dissections. I was admitted overnight. My legs were giving out on me. The intense pain and vomiting continued. By the morning, I could finally keep down fluids. The doctors didn't think the aneurysms were the cause of the pain because of their size, and they were aware to have a high threshold for surgical intervention. So I was discharged home the following day without follow-up. I felt really ill, sweating, nausea, pain, and distended abdomen. I saw the GP several times and finally went back to A&E. They thought I had a UTI because I had blood in my urine. I knew they were going to discharge me, which the junior doctor confirmed. I told her and the nurse that something was really wrong, that I couldn't be in this much pain from a UTI. The nurse said it was probably my pain threshold, and my family spoke to the registrar, who agreed to admit me. A further scan revealed that my hepatic artery aneurysm had significantly grown in size in just under a week, and I underwent emergency surgery. On another occasion, I had a spontaneous dissection during the night when I was recovering in hospital from appendicitis. The nurse dismissed my concerns of sudden onset of pain. Thankfully, the doctor saw me the following morning and realised what was happening. On another occasion, a nurse ignored my concerns about severe pain and difficulty breathing after being given medication through a chest drain. I had to demand to see a doctor, and they discovered a bleed and pneumothorax, which required 2 emergency chest drains and another stay in intensive care. I also had sudden onset of pain in my arm when I was home recovering after the appendicitis. The vascular surgery team scanned my arm in A&E, but as they only saw subtle changes and I had an arterial pulse, they didn't think the changes they saw were the cause of the pain. So I was discharged, only to return 2 hours later. I had to email my dermatologist in the early hours of the morning from A&E, hoping he would read it when he arrived at work, and contact the vascular team for me, which thankfully he did. Because the doctors in A&E had referred to the thrombosis team and not vascular surgery, which was because they had ruled out an aneurysm. So what has helped me become a better advocate? Experience, a better understanding of how vEDS affects my body, how symptoms present, and recognizing that dissection pain. Secondly, patient expectation, managing my expectations of clinicians' understanding of vEDS and the potential pitfalls in diagnosing and managing complications. Patients need to be aware that even if the clinician knows the patient has a diagnosis of vEDS, they can very often significantly underestimate the fragility of the connective tissue. They are frequently unaware that subtle presentation of symptoms or vascular changes could be an indication of a serious complication. Therefore, they don't lower the threshold for investigations and monitoring. And clinicians may expect aneurysms to behave in vEDS patients as they do in the normal population, and don't realise that aneurysms or these subtle changes are very much a dynamic situation. And finally, that there can be a cluster effect of seemingly unrelated complications in vEDS patients. Being more prepared for an emergency complication has also helped. Carrying more information for doctors. Medical cards are not enough on their own, and patients need personalised letters from clinicians. Building a relationship of trust and understanding with my care team. This has definitely improved my experience, quality of life and health outcomes. I feel more able to approach clinicians, more confident that my concerns will be taken seriously and that they will have a lower threshold for investigation and monitoring. It takes time, effort on both sides, and sometimes a history of serious complications to forge these partnerships, but it makes a massive difference. And finally, meeting with doctors after misdiagnosis of complications. By understanding why clinical decisions were made, I can better advocate for myself. I think it is as important for the patient to understand the clinicians when you live with a rare disease as it is for the clinicians to understand the patient and their condition. You all know that vEDS is very challenging. The clinicians that have been involved in my care are extremely capable, and I do not blame them. We need to support and educate them as much as we do patients. My experiences are not isolated incidents. These are problems for patients throughout the vEDS community. It doesn't matter how good the hospital is or how skilled the clinicians are. I do not feel safe in hospital unless there are clinicians involved in my care who have a really good understanding of vEDS. Even then, what happens when they're not on the ward? It's the middle of the night and no one understands my concerns or escalates them. I know my life expectancy is affected by vEDS, but my fear is ending up as an avoidable death. So what could help in the future? Firstly, accessible guidelines for clinicians. It is not just as simple as believing clinicians are not taking me seriously. My concern about poor health outcomes are as much for the clinician as the patient. How do we educate clinicians and ensure they have access to the information, guidelines, and support they need to treat us effectively? They need 24/7 accessible guidelines for both inpatient, emergency, and outpatient care. This, as well as post-op. This could also include educational webinars or videos for the clinician containing key messages, highlighting what they may not understand about vEDS. Secondly, patient and clinician access to 24/7 emergency specialist advice and support. I know there are staffing and financial challenges, but out of hours is a massive problem, and vEDS patients' complications often can't wait till morning. Thirdly, supporting patients regarding emergency preparedness and managing their expectations. That includes having an emergency plan for when they're in hospital and not just A&E. Patients need to be aware of the potential issues and be prepared with an emergency plan. And finally, how hospitals approach care of high-risk rare disease patients. For example, assessment by senior doctors, supporting junior doctors to escalate concerns to their senior, OBS being done by nurses instead of healthcare assistants, and at least ensuring healthcare assistants feedback all OBS to their seniors. Process for patients to escalate concerns as an inpatient if they do not feel their concerns are understood. For example, if a nurse doesn't refer to a doctor, how is that concern then escalated? Development of care plans for emergency and inpatient care, including ICU, and considering at a local level how to record emergency medical information in electronic records in a way that is easily accessible. Thank you very much for listening.